The marble floors of the corporate lobby reflected power, wealth, and control. Cameras were raised. Security stood tall. Executives whispered behind polished smiles. And in the center of it all, a black woman, in a tailored emerald suit, was being told to step outside and wait. She had arrived with authority in her stride and ownership in her silence. Yet within seconds, assumptions were made. Credentials were ignored. Her presence was reduced to inconvenience. 5 minutes later, the same people who dismissed her would watch their careers collapse in real time because the woman they tried to remove from the building owned it. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who believes in justice, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Black Legacy for more powerful stories that reveal truth hidden behind closed doors. The headquarters of Hawthorne and Vale Industries stood in the heart of downtown Chicago, a 40-story monument of glass and stone. It was a company built on reputation, real estate, logistics, commercial investments. For decades, it had been run by men whose portraits lined the executive hallway, like a private museum of inherited influence. What those portraits never reflected was change. Hawthorne and Vale had recently undergone a quiet but massive transition. A majority share acquisition had taken place over the previous 18 months. Board seats shifted. Silent investors became controlling stakeholders. And at the center of that transformation was one name few in the building had paid attention to: Ariana Cole. At 38 years old, Ariana had built a reputation in private equity circles that made competitors uneasy. Raised on the south side of Chicago by a public school principal and a transit mechanic, she learned early how power operated, not loudly, but structurally. She graduated top of her class from Northwestern, earned her MBA at Harvard, and by her early 30s had already managed portfolios that revitalized struggling urban developments without displacing families. She was known for precision, for patience, for playing the long game. When Hawthorne and Vale stock began to dip after a series of questionable executive decisions, Ariana saw an opportunity. She didn't rush. She didn't announce her intentions. Through layered investment vehicles and strategic partnerships, she slowly acquired influence. When the time came, she became majority owner. The official announcement of her leadership transition was scheduled for Monday morning at 10 a.m., but Ariana had chosen to arrive unannounced at 9:15. She wanted to observe. Dressed in a deep green tailored suit, hair neatly braided into a sleek bob, she walked through the revolving doors with calm authority. No entourage, no assistant, just a slim leather portfolio tucked beneath her arm. The lobby was busy. Senior executives gathered for what they believed was a routine quarterly review meeting. A blonde woman in a cream coat stood near the reception desk, clearly irritated about something. Several board members chatted near the elevators. Phones were already recording snippets of internal office gossip. When Ariana approached the reception desk and calmly stated she was there for the executive board meeting, the receptionist hesitated. Her smile tightened. She asked for identification. Ariana provided it. The receptionist examined it longer than necessary. A security guard was quietly signaled. Within moments, the atmosphere shifted. The blonde executive in the cream coat, Catherine Lowell, Senior Operations Director, turned sharply when she overheard fragments of the conversation. Her eyes scanned Ariana from head to toe, not with curiosity, but calculation. Assumption had already replaced verification. Catherine approached, posture rigid, voice controlled, but edged with condescension. She informed Ariana that the executive floor was restricted and that vendors and external consultants were required to wait outside until formally cleared. Ariana calmly clarified her purpose again. Catherine did not listen. Instead, she gestured toward the glass doors and repeated the instruction. Wait outside. Phones began to lift. Some employees sensed tension. Others simply anticipated drama. Ariana glanced around the lobby, not with embarrassment, but with observation. She noted who looked uncomfortable, who looked amused, who looked eager to record. She checked her watch. 9:23 a.m. She nodded once, said nothing, and walked toward the doors. Security followed at a polite but unmistakable distance. Outside, the Chicago wind brushed against her suit jacket. Through the glass, she could see executives shaking their heads, whispering, some smirking in quiet validation of what they assumed was protocol enforcement. None of them knew what would happen at 9:28 a.m. inside the building. In the executive conference room upstairs, a large screen flickered on. The board meeting agenda auto-loaded, and at the top of the digital presentation appeared a title slide no one had previewed. Leadership transition, effective immediately. Downstairs, Ariana's phone vibrated once. The clock ticked to 9:28, and the doors behind her began to open again. At 9:28 a.m., the atmosphere inside Hawthorne and Vail shifted from routine corporate tension to visible confusion. The CFO rushed toward the elevators after receiving a call from legal counsel. Two board members stared at their phones in disbelief. Catherine Lowe frowned at a text message that simply read, "Emergency board session. Now." The receptionist looked pale. Security stepped back from Ariana as her phone vibrated again, this time with a direct line from the chairman of the board. She answered calmly. Within seconds, the energy changed. Catherine approached again, this time less certain. Her posture had softened. She informed Ariana there must have been a misunderstanding and that she was now welcome upstairs. Ariana did not rush. She did not express anger. She simply walked back through the glass doors. Every phone that had once recorded her removal was now recording her return. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent. Catherine stood beside her, jaw tight, eyes forward. No apology, only discomfort. When the doors opened the conference room, 12 executives were already seated. The large presentation screen displayed Ariana's name beneath the company logo, majority shareholder, incoming chief executive officer. The room froze. Some faces drained of color. Others attempted quick recalculations. A few glanced toward Catherine, whose earlier certainty had evaporated. Ariana stepped to the head of the table. The chairman cleared his throat and formally introduced her as the new CEO of Hawthorne and Vail Industries, effective immediately. No one spoke, but tension filled every inch of the room. Ariana began her address, not with emotion, but with facts. She referenced declining profit margins, questionable procurement contracts, HR complaints that had been quietly settled, diversity initiatives that existed only in marketing brochures. She displayed numbers, documentation, audit trails, and then she paused. She described, without raising her voice, what had occurred in the lobby downstairs just minutes earlier. She did not dramatize it. She simply outlined it as evidence. Evidence of a culture problem. A culture that assumed authority had one face. A culture that mistook composure for subordination. A culture that mistook ownership for intrusion. Catherine shifted in her chair. Several executives avoided eye contact. Ariana continued. She explained that leadership was not only about financial performance, but institutional integrity. That perception was shaped in lobbies before it was shaped in boardrooms. And then she made her first executive decision. Immediate termination of 3 senior compliance officers involved in suppressing internal discrimination reports. Suspension of Catherine Lowe pending formal review. Reassignment of the current HR director. Gasps were audible now. Ariana remained steady. She was not retaliating. She was restructuring. And then she delivered the statement that would echo through every department by noon. Those who could not operate within a culture of accountability would not operate within her company at all. Outside the conference room, word spread like wildfire. The same phones that had recorded her being told to wait outside were now capturing executives, leaving with security escorts. By 11 a.m., Hawthorne and Vail was no longer the same company, but the climax was still coming, because accountability does not settle quietly. It exposes, and exposure was about to go public. At 12:15 p.m., financial news outlets began receiving a press release. Leadership transition confirmed. Corporate restructuring underway. Commitment to ethical oversight and cultural reform. Within an hour, social media clips from the lobby surfaced online. The footage of Ariana being asked to wait outside began circulating, paired with the breaking news of her appointment as CEO. The narrative shifted rapidly. Commentators debated corporate bias. Investors reacted cautiously. Former employees began sharing their experiences. The story was no longer internal. It was national. By mid-afternoon, Hawthorne and Vale's stock dipped briefly due to uncertainty, but then began to climb as markets responded to stability and decisive leadership. Inside the building, remaining executives sat in stunned silence. Catherine, now formally escorted from her office pending review, understood the weight of what had happened. The culture she had reinforced for years had collapsed in 5 minutes of misjudgment. Ariana stood alone in her new office, overlooking the city skyline. She did not celebrate. She reflected, because this was never about humiliation. It was about correction. The same systems that once quietly excluded were now publicly confronted. The same lobby that reflected dismissal now reflected transformation. At 3 p.m., Ariana addressed the entire company via live broadcast. She spoke about standards, about equity, about accountability beginning at the front door. She made it clear that no one was above review, including herself. And in that moment, Hawthorne and Vale began something rare in corporate America, a cultural reset driven not by scandal, but by leadership. Over the next 6 months, measurable change unfolded. Internal reporting systems were restructured. Community investment initiatives expanded into underserved neighborhoods without displacement. Promotion pipelines diversified based on performance metrics rather than proximity to power. Stock performance stabilized. Employee satisfaction rose. But beyond numbers, something deeper shifted. The lobby, the very space where Ariana had once been told to wait outside, now displayed a new installation. Not a portrait, not a slogan, but a single line etched into brushed steel. Leadership is recognized by action, not assumption. Visitors noticed it immediately. So did employees. Catherine Lowell's review concluded with permanent termination due to documented patterns of discriminatory enforcement policies. The compliance officers faced legal consequences. Accountability had followed process, not impulse. And Ariana continued operating with the same calm precision that brought her there. The moment in the lobby never left her, not as resentment, but as reminder, because change rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in a green suit, holding a portfolio, and sometimes the people told to step outside are the very ones who own the building. If this story moved you, reminded you of the importance of justice and leadership, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Black Legacy for more powerful stories that expose truth and inspire change. This is Black Legacy, and the story is far from over.